Thank you for joining us this evening, and I'm going to be sharing with you about the name of the Messiah or the Mashiach, and we're going to talk about the evidence that of what the name of the Mashiach is. A lot of people think that the name of the Messiah is that his name is Jesus, and we're going to talk about how that the name Jesus is an inaccurate transliteration of the Mashiach's name. And we're going to share with you the evidence and the proof that the Mashiach, or the Messiah, first of all, he was Jewish. He was born into a Jewish family. He followed the Torah. He said he had come in his Father's name. We've done extensive studies on the Father's name, and we know from our study of the Scriptures that the name of our Creator is Yahuwah. And this is found on our YouTube channel. You can do the research and see all the teachings that I've done on the name of the Creator. And if you don't have an understanding of that his name is Yahuwah. And the Mashiach, or the Messiah, in the Gospel of John, chapter 5, verse 43, said he had come in his Father's name. And with that said, then there had to be some resemblance of his name with the Father. There had to be a connection there that people should have recognized the connection when he declared who he was and what his name was. We're going to share with you that, and I want to say this up front, that for those who have thought that the name of the Mashiach or the Messiah is Jesus, I'll tell you myself, I was a believer for many years. That's the only name that I knew, because I did not study beyond the translations of the Bible that I had. Most people don't. Most people just read what scriptures they have and assume that everything that's translated is accurate. And one thing you have to understand, that our English Bibles that we have are exactly that. They're translations. They are not the original writings. Now, and the reason most people need an English translation is they don't speak Hebrew or they don't speak Greek or Latin, and so they have to have an English translation to understand what the scriptures are saying. With that said, then you have to be open to understand that there could be some inaccuracies in the translations, in which there are. The word of Yahuwah is accurate itself. In the original writings, there's no, it was written the way it was written. It is the word of Yahuwah, so the scripture says all scripture is given by inspiration of Yahuwah, and it's given for instruction, for in righteousness, in that we might know how to walk and how to live out our lives. And it's 100% the truth. But in the process of translating the scriptures from one language to another can cause some problems, because in different languages you don't have the same letters to make the same sounds that the original language would have. Now, one thing I want to say for those who don't understand this, but there's a difference of what a translation is and what a transliteration is. A translation would be to interpret what was said in a certain language into our own language, so you would know what was said, whether it would be a person's name, if that name had a meaning to it, or if they just spoke a sentence out or a phrase out in a certain language that you were not familiar with, and then someone would translate what they said. I think we can understand that fairly easy. But where people get confused or not understanding what a transliteration is, a transliteration would be like, for instance, if you had a name in a certain language, and you were going to convey your name to someone else in their language, well, you would need the letters of their language in order to make the same sounds the way that your name would sound. And so that's the way it should be. A transliteration should be able to make the same sounds of how your name is sounded out when it's pronounced, with the help of the other letters of the second language. But there again, if you don't have the same letters in that second language to make those sounds, then you run into a problem. And that's what's happened with the transliteration of the name of the Messiah or the Mashiach. He was a Hebrew. He was born a Hebrew. He had a Hebrew name. And Jesus is not Hebrew. In fact, Jesus is really not even it's not an accurate transliteration, because it does not make the sounds of the name of the Mashiach or the Messiah that he had and that he is, his name in Hebrew. So, and this is easy to prove if you will just do the research. You don't take my word for it. I encourage you, because you won't be convinced unless you do the research yourself. But I'm going to help point you to the way that you can find the research and find the information that you need so you can understand that Jesus is not the name of the Mashiach. He was never called that. That is, now I'm not saying that if that's the only name that you knew and that you were born from above by calling upon that name. I was many years ago, because that was the only name I knew. And but this just speaks of the mercy of Yahuwah. He knows that the scriptures have been corrupted as far as the name of the Mashiach being corrupted or hidden, and also the name of the creators have been hidden. It's been substituted with the word Lord in our English translations. And again, we've already taught about all this, but I just will mention this, that over 7,000 times in the scriptures where you see the word Lord or God, in some instances where the word God is used, the name of the Creator should appear there. And the name of our Creator is Yahuwah. Now, a lot of people think it's Yahweh or Jehovah and all these other variations, but to be accurate, his name is pronounced Yahuwah. And that's for another teaching. I'm not going to go in that today and confuse everyone right now, because we're trying to deal with the Mashiach or the Messiah and really see what the scriptures declare and what it is his name is, and how we know that it is that. So with that said, as we begin to study this and we begin to understand the difference of what a transliteration should be, which should be to carry the name of the Messiah, Mashiach, over from Hebrew over into English and make the same sounds. Now, I want to read in Matthew chapter 1, verse 21, where the angel Gabriel told Joseph, or Yahusuf, that was his name in Hebrew, and Miriam, her name was not Mary, her Hebrew name was Miriam, what to name the child. You'll find this in Matthew chapter 1, verse 21. And it says, "And she shall bring forth a son, and you shall call his name." Now, again, if you're reading from an English translation, it's going to say Jesus. And but his name in Hebrew is Yahusha. That's what Gabriel told her to name the child, was Yahusha. Now, if you'll stay with us, and we won't be able to get all this in on this one little teaching here, because we're going to have to go into quite a bit of detail to prove to you that's what he told Miriam and Yahusuf to name the child, was Yahusha. Now, then he says here, "For he shall save his people from their sins." Now, before I go any further, I need to say this, that all Hebrew names have a meaning to them. All proper Hebrew personal names have a meaning to them. It's not like our culture in the West, where we label people names like Tom, Dick, or Harry, which have no meaning whatsoever. They're just labels that we attach to people, and they really don't mean anything. We could almost give them numbers, and it'd be about the same thing, instead of giving them a name. But in the Eastern culture and in the Jewish culture, every proper name has meaning to it. So, with that said, when Jesus, by the way, is not a Hebrew name. First of all, the letter J there is no J in Hebrew, so it's impossible for him to be called Jesus when he walked on the earth, because the J letter actually is a new letter to the English language. It's the last letter that was added to our alphabet, and it's about approximately 500 years old. So, with that said, he never could have been called Jesus, and the name Jesus doesn't carry with it the meaning or what it would mean in Hebrew, which we're going to talk about that in our next teaching. I'm going to have to stop here because I'm going to be running over if I don't. And we really got a whole lot of information to cover on this, so I'd encourage you to be watching for the rest of our teachings that we'll be doing on this subject. And I thank you for your time. I love you. Yahuwah loves you. And I want you to have a blessed and prosperous evening, and we'll see you on our next session. Shalom.